what language did Marco Polo use in Kublai Khan's court in China? It actually might not be what you expect. The details of Marco Polo's travels are often debated, but most scholars actually do agree that he lived and worked among Yuan dynasty officials in what is now modern-day Beijing. And this is based off of things he included in his accounts that would be pretty hard to guess if you hadn't actually been there, like details about how the government worked and place names and stuff like that. Marco Polo grew up speaking Venetian, but he also probably knew other Romance languages like French and Italian. But way out east, none of these languages were that useful. Alright, so he was in China, so he probably had to learn Chinese, right? But actually, although he claimed to have learned Chinese, his accounts give us very little evidence that he actually did, which may seem surprising, but it actually makes sense if you think about what China was like at this time. The Yuan dynasty is also often called the Mongol dynasty because Kublai Khan and his warriors were Mongols. And in fact, Kublai Khan himself probably couldn't even speak Chinese, although he might have been able to understand it. So in order to effectively rule his vast empire, he installed a new class of interpreters. So they would have known Mongolian, Chinese, Persian, Turkish, Uyghur, and a bunch of other languages. But actually among his court, the main languages were probably Mongolian and Persian. Persian might seem surprising, but the Mongols conquered a lot of Persian territory and actually really liked Persian bureaucracy. So the Yuan dynasty kind of imported a lot of that to China. And here's where we circle back to Marco Polo. Remember how I said that scholars weren't sure if he knew Chinese? Well, part of the reason for that is that sometimes he wouldn't use the Chinese names for places. Sometimes it would look more like a Persian or Mongolian form of the name. So if he was getting information about these places from Persian or Mongolian sources, it's likely that he spoke those languages. And of course he used Chinese names as well, but those were probably in common use among Persian or Mongolian speakers in the empire. Given that Marco Polo lived there for 20 years, it's likely that he did become proficient in the languages of the court like Mongolian or Persian. And if he did speak to Kublai Khan as he claimed, he probably did it in the Khan's native Mongolian or with an interpreter that spoke Mongolian and Persian. But either way, he wasn't speaking his native Venetian. Thanks for watching, and if you want to support me, check out these shirts and hoodies and stuff in the link in my bio.